Welcome to the Private Practice with Soul podcast. My name is Dr. Brooklyn Storme, and I help private practice owners align their business back with their soul's calling, with their big vision and with their soul's purpose. Unlike other private practice coaches, I've traveled the world in search of spiritual resources, spiritual tools, education and information so that you can have the transformation that your soul desires and needs so that you can up-level your business. How much fun is this? I love it so much. Guys, if you're not already a member of the Private Practice Monthly Mentorship Group, please check out the show notes. I would love for you to be there. In the meantime, thank you so much for pushing play today. Let's begin. Hello everybody, and welcome to a bonus episode of the Private Practice with Soul podcast. I am so pleased you're here because we're celebrating today. The podcast has been selected to be a featured podcast on Podbean. So big shout out to Podbean. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and I can't wait for this podcast to reach so many more people, because I know that it's really going to help any of you who are in private practice, or maybe you're looking at starting a private practice, or even perhaps you're at the stage where you're considering exiting your private practice. Hopefully you're going to get a lot of value out of what we talk about. So in the spirit of giving more value, I thought I would do a special bonus episode. And this has come about because somebody asked me today, what is alignment? Like, what does alignment actually mean for your private practice? And it's such a good question, because I guess because I've been working in this space of alignment for a couple of years now, I just kind of think everybody knows what it is. And I often forget that newcomers to the podcast and newcomers to my coaching business often don't know what it is. So let's take a few steps back today and look at what it actually means to be in alignment. So a quick Google search shows that the Cambridge Dictionary defines alignment as when two things are positioned parallel to each other. There's a balance, and there can also be an imbalance, right? And when I'm talking with you about alignment, I'm talking about alignment between your soul's purpose, your intention, your big vision, the why you wanted to start a private practice in the first place, the why you decided to pursue a career in therapy and invest all that money in it and all that time in your placements and all that time in your assessments and assignments and study and memberships and goodness knows what. It's looking at why all of that happened and how that's being reflected in your current working life. And so when things are in balance, we say that they're in alignment. And when things are out of whack, we say that they're out of alignment. And I believe that success in your private practice or success in your health and wellness coaching business is an inner game first, and strategy comes second. And I believe that a lot of the time we get this back to front. I fell, victim to this as well. Like, I had that mindset where I just needed somebody to show me the tools. I just needed somebody to give me the step. And I was that one who was downloading the webinars and the PDFs and doing all of that stuff, right? I've been there. But nobody ever told me that, no, it's got to be an inner game first. It wasn't until a couple of years ago that I learned that. And even when I heard it, I didn't believe it. I wanted to go back to what I knew, which was strategy. But here's the thing, strategy only gets you so far. You can be given all the best strategies in the world, but they're not going to land for you if you don't believe in them, if you don't believe in yourself, if your mindset is, not, what's the word for it? It's not lining up with the outcome that you want, all of that stuff. And so alignment for me is really around, how do we line up all that inner game? How do we line up your thinking, your believing, your behaving, your feeling, your actions with the private practice in order for you to be able to do things like, reduce your client workload so that you can be home for dinner with the family and you can be present instead of have your mind wandering to emails and your social media and things like that. How can we help you, create money, and maybe you don't want a 7-figure practice, that's fine, but how do we get you creating money that's going to put you in a position where you're not stressed if you have to take a day off, or you're not stressed if you have to take a week or two off? How do we create that for you in a way that feels good, in a way that marries up really beautifully with your values and your big vision, as we said before? So this is what alignment is, and I believe that a successful private practice needs to be an aligned private practice, because if it's not, then you're not going to be feeling fulfilled. You're not going to make the money. You're not going to find the opportunities. You're not going to have all of those good things come to you. You're not going to be able to have the impact that you want to have. Okay? So here are some things that we really need to consider. And how do you know when your practice is out of alignment? So I've got some points for you to think about. First one that came to mind was the technical stuff, right? So the technical stuff is, consider like your practice management software. So maybe you're using something like Power Diary, or maybe you're using something like Haloxy, and it just feels clunky. You feel like you only know parts of it and not all of it. You still struggle with it even though you've been using it for a little while, and it just feels really uncomfortable. Maybe also you're doing some of your assessments online and you're not familiar with the online portals, and you don't know how to do online reporting for employee assistance programs that you're working with and things like that. The technical stuff can absolutely feel like it's out of alignment, especially if you have your own views and values around how to deliver a service. Sometimes we're required as therapists, aren't we, to operate within certain restrictions and certain requirements according to different funding bodies. And as you know from previous podcasts, I let go of my Medicare work because I didn't feel comfortable with the restrictions that it places on us as therapists with the direct client work that we do. So I would call that a technical area that was out of alignment with me. And while I was working in it, it never felt good to me. It didn't feel right to me. And now that I've let that go, there have been big energetic shifts in the way that I show up in my practice, the types of clients I'm attracting to the practice, the work that I get to do now, and the ways that I get to deliver that intervention and that support to that client. And it just feels so much better. So have a think for yourself around how you're feeling with some of the technical aspects of your private practice. That's the first area. The second area is physical alignment. Now, by physical alignment, what I'm talking about here is, the tangible aspects of your practice. A really good example of this is, let's imagine that you're renting a room like I was a few years ago in a serviced office. Okay, I couldn't do anything about the walls. I couldn't do anything about the color of them. I couldn't do anything about the furniture in there. I just had to deal with it and try and make the best of it. Now, you might be somebody who's perhaps renting a room as well, and maybe you think to yourself, oh, I can't bring in my own furnishings because I'm only here one day a week, and the owner of the practice doesn't want me bringing in my own things because other people are in my space. Other people use this room on the days that I'm not here. And so then when you do go into the room on your day, it never really feels quite right, does it? Because it doesn't have the things that you would like to have if it was just your space. So ask yourself if you're feeling aligned with the physical aspects of the space where you're working. That's the second thing. The next thing is, have a look at the cognitive or the mental alignment components of yourself with your private practice, okay? If it's not the type of work that you feel comfortable doing, if it's making you feel resistant, if it feels hard, if it feels heavy, if you're just not enjoying it, if it requires extra effort, if it's really demanding, then it's probably out of alignment, because we know that when you're working to your soul's purpose and when things are feeling aligned, that you're in flow. And when you're in flow, that's where things feel enjoyable, easy, like there's no obstacles, like everything's just happening very organically, very naturally, and you're really liking it. There's no significant emotional charge on it. It's just a natural state for you to feel calm, at ease, happy, enjoyable, loving it. If you're not feeling those things, then I would get you to have a think about how can you change the mental component of the work that you're doing, or the cognitive component of the work that you're doing, so that it could be more aligned with your purpose, your vision, your values, right? The last section that I've got here is spiritual. And this is when the energy just kind of feels off. It's not tangible. It's invisible. It's more a feeling. It's, some people will walk into your space and they'll love the vibe of it. And they'll say, I love the vibe of this place, Brooklyn. Or, wow, you've created a really beautiful atmosphere. I just feel so calm when I come in here. So really tune into the feeling that you get when you're in your therapeutic space, whether you own a whole practice building or whether it's a room that you're renting. Tune into how you feel in that space. What's the vibe of the space? Because if you go in there and maybe you're looking forward to work and that's all good, and you drive down to the practice and that's all good and you're feeling good and you're comfortable doing a WACE, or you're comfortable doing a WISC, and you're comfortable doing a PAI and all your assessments, and you're comfortable using your practice management software, and you're comfortable seeing your clients, but you walk into that room and you're just like, oh, I can't stand that I've got grey walls everywhere, or I can't stand this dirty floor, I can't stand the scuff marks on the skirting board, or I don't like being in a room that doesn't have natural light, or I don't like being in a room that doesn't have plants. Whatever it is, tune into how you feel at a soul level, on a spiritual level. What's the vibe of the space? Okay, because if that feels off, maybe that could be impacting how you're showing up for your work. And I know that there are some of you that, see so many clients in a day. I work with private practice owners, and they're seeing, some see 4 people a day, some see 6 people a day, some book 8 people and hope to see 6. Some people book 10, some people book 12. And I know that in your mind you all think that you're doing it and you're all doing it really well and stuff like that, but you need to make sure that you're looking after yourself, you're not burning out, you're leaving yourself time to work on the practice, not just being like a duck on the water, looking all nice and calm to everybody, looking all nice and calm on the surface, but underneath you're like freaking out and panicking, wondering how you're going to get all of the work done. Yeah. So this is a transformational podcast, right? Today I don't have journal prompts for you, but I've got things for you to think about. And the first thing is really around what can you start to do differently in order to address some of those 4 areas that we've spoken about with respect to alignment in your private practice. And so the first thing is maybe look at how you can start shifting the energy of the space. Does this mean introducing a plant? Does this mean repainting? Does this mean getting rid of the horrible chair and getting a nice chair? Does this mean getting a little desk in there? Does it mean bringing in your crystals? I mean, what would you need to do to that space in order to create an energetic shift that made you feel like you were aligned with your purpose? You just felt, yes, this represents me. This is my space. To the best of your ability, if you're in an area where you can't do too much, there'll always be still something that you can change, whether or not it is bringing in a little plant. But have a look at that. Maybe do you want to have conversations with the practice manager or the landlord around your options? I mean, are they going to be too upset if you bring in a rug? Are they going to be too upset if you bring in a little cushion or something? Have conversations and find out if there's anything that you can do to start shifting some of that energy in the therapy space. It might even be something like lighting a candle, It might even be something like perhaps when you first enter that space, you want to do a white light meditation maybe. I don't know. Clear out some of that energy from everyone who's been in there before you, so that in your mind it feels like it's a cleansed area and you're going to be good to go ahead with your practice. The next thing is to really connect back to your heart space. So a lot of the time we get caught in our heads, don't we? And we're thinking about all of the things that we've got to do, the reports that we've got to write to the doctors that referred the clients, the reports we've got to write to support coordinators and workers. We're thinking about the billing that we've got to do, the invoices that are outstanding, and the difficult conversations we need to have with people to chase them up, all of that sort of stuff. But sometimes we get stuck in our heads and we forget to drop back down into our heart space. So, really allow yourself opportunities before you go to work, maybe on the weekend or maybe the night before, to allow yourself to connect again with your purpose and develop ways of really understanding what it is you're wanting and you're needing from your practice. Because guess what? Although you might not be able to change too many things now, for example, if you're locked into a lease or something like that, doing this exercise will start to help you cultivate a plan, cultivate an idea of what you do want for the future once that lease is up. And the more time you can give to thinking about this, the more likely it will be that you'll be able to create that beautiful private practice that is a match for your purpose. Okay. The other thing too is with some of the mental stuff and some of the technical things that aren't feeling aligned with your purpose and that aren't lighting you up or making you feel good, they're feeling hard and horrible and you want to avoid them at all costs, have a serious look at what you can delegate. Now, if you have people working with you, maybe you have provisional psychologists working with you, maybe you have social workers that are on placement, what can you give them to do? If it's not them, what can you delegate out to your bookkeeper? What can you delegate out to your accountant? What can you delegate out to your Google AdWords person? What can you delegate out to a social media person, right? Do you have a virtual assistant? Instead of you taking all of the phone calls and making all of the bookings and doing all of the intake, is there a way that you can connect with a virtual admin company if you can't afford a real physical person in your real physical space? Often linking with an external virtual admin provider for therapists can be a great solution to that. I use a company called One Point Connect. It costs me about, I think it's about $400 a month on the plan and the package that I'm on. But that's much more affordable for me than having somebody at the practice 6 days a week from 8 till 6, right? But having a company offsite to answer the phones and do the intake and process the payments and all of that sort of stuff, it saves me hours every week, and it saves me stress, and it saves me wasted time following things up. It streamlines a lot of my processes. It automates a lot of my processes for me. And it just takes that off my plate so that then I can focus on the parts of my business that I really, 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 really love. It's like I'm not even aware of what's happening with the virtual admin until I connect with them once a month and we do our catch up and we find out how it's going. I only ever really hear about how it's all going if I initiate a meeting or if there's some kind of, issue with a client or something like that. But just having that taken off my plate really did shift my energy a lot, especially when I was just starting out in private practice. So if you think that you can't afford it, know that it might only cost you $100 a week. Guys, that's one appointment. That's one appointment. That's one 50 to 60 minute appointment. Wouldn't it be worth it to get the help that you need? It kind of makes sense. And I'm just saying One Point Connect because they're the ones that I used. I've used a couple of other places. I won't name them here because I didn't have great experiences with them, and that's why I'm back with One Point. But there are many places, and if you'd like some information about places like that can help you, hit me up. I'll put my contact details in the show notes. You can just get in touch with me and I'll help you find some names and numbers, and you can ring around and see what's going to work with you. But it's a great way to shift the energy. The other one too is to really look for opportunities for your own personal growth. Look for opportunities for your own expansion of your purpose. And by this, I mean, I believe that all of us have in our heart an experience that we've had, might have been 5 years ago, 10 years ago, when we're adolescents, maybe when we were kids. We've had an experience that has become like an anchor for us. And when I say it's an anchor, I mean we go back to it time and time again when events happen in our life. And I can give you an example. When I was growing up, Dad left when I was little. I just turned 11. My dad left. I was the eldest of 6 children. And then what happened was I started really getting into things like tarot cards, rune stones, collecting crystals, trying to read my fortune and predict my future, journaling, keeping diaries, all that sort of stuff, right? And then life just kind of happened and I moved through all of that. And then stuff happened again when I was a teenager. Between 16 and 18, things happened again. And guess what? I found myself going back. It wasn't even a conscious thing. I didn't say to myself, hey, you should get back to all that spiritual stuff. No, I just found myself going back to it. And when you're, between 16 and 18, you're very impressionable and you're taking on lots of stuff. Your personality is still developing and forming, isn't it? And so I was loving all of that and I took it even further. And so I wanted to learn about more things in that spiritual space. And that's when I started going and having readings and buying books about spirituality. And that's when I came across my very, very first book. And I've spoken about this one in previous podcasts as well, but I can remember it like it was yesterday. I was in a trash and treasure / opportunity shop in Frankston. It was on the corner of Plain Street and Davies Street. It was a charity I'm not familiar with. It wasn't a big one like Red Cross or Salvos or Brotherhood or anything like that. I forget what it was. I think it might have been, I don't know, I want to say I can't remember. Anyway, so I went in there one day and I was looking for treasure because I loved treasure hunting in these places. And I was looking at books and I was really big on buying first edition books. I don't know why. I don't even know where this idea came from. I just was obsessed with finding books that were first editions and I would often find them in op shops and then I'll resell them, right? I was an entrepreneur from back then. But anyway, so I remember I was in this op shop and I was looking for all, first edition books. And you know what op shops can be like everything's just kind of in a bit of a disarray in the bookshelf area. There's recipe books in with encyclopedias. But anyway, so I'm looking at all of these books and then it was so strange because a book literally fell off the shelf and landed at my feet. And I picked it up and I put it back on the shelf and then it fell back down again. And I picked it up and I thought, oh, I don't want this book. It was really thin. It was more like a booklet than a book. It was really thin. And it clearly wasn't a first edition and it wasn't an old book. So anyway, I put it back on the shelf and guess what? Yeah, it dropped off the shelf again. And then I just thought, oh, fine, whatever. And I put it aside. I was crouching down, balancing books on my lap, opening up all the covers, looking to see when they were printed and things like that. And then when I'd got my books and I'd finished in the op shop, I picked up the books that I wanted to get and I didn't realise that I had also picked up this booklet. And anyway, so I went and paid for everything. I was distracted because I was there with my girlfriend at the time. And we were just chatting away, asking, were we going to go for coffee or something after this? And wasn't paying attention. I paid for the books. All good. I get the books in a little plastic white shopping bag, which we don't have anymore really, do we? And I remember we spent the rest of the day sitting in a coffee shop, having big coffees, and then we went home. I got home and I unpacked the books and I found this booklet again. And of course I put it away, but this book kept turning up for probably about the next 3 to 6 months. It just kept turning up in places that I swear to this day I didn't put it. And then one day I had a look at it and I can't remember what it was called. It was navy blue and white and it was by Norman Vincent Peale and it changed my life. I read that book from cover to cover maybe about 100 times. And then I knew that this was the path I needed to go down. I just knew that I wanted to learn more, that I understood all of a sudden that there was more to learn. And then I got really thirsty for it. And that was what I mean by expansion. And that's what I mean by anchoring back. And then what happened was all of that kind of stuff pretty much died down after I started going to uni, because I got caught up with, studying. I was at university for 14 years, getting my PhD in the end. And during all my time at university, of course, also I got married. And throughout my marriage, if we're going out to a bookstore, I'd always have a look for tarot cards and spiritual books and stuff like that. But I never felt so driven. And then it was, I got divorced and I started traveling overseas. And I was traveling overseas feeling pulled, called, compelled to go and check out anywhere and everywhere I could that had any history whatsoever to do with spiritual things and healing. And I wanted to know about shamans. I wanted to know about gurus. I wanted to know about mystical things. I wanted to know about anything and everything. I was just acutely aware that I knew nothing. And the more I was learning from places in Marrakesh, from places in Dubai, from places in Cairo, from places in Glasgow, from places in London, from places in Paris, the more I traveled, the more I learned I didn't know. And when I came home, I felt like I had a greater understanding. And one of the things that I learned from all of those travels is that, if I could pull everything together and see what the common denominator was, it was that your answers come from you. Your answers come from within you, not from out there. And that was probably the biggest thing that I learned. And so it's from that space that I started talking more and more about alignment and spirituality in your private practice. So for me, this stuff has been my anchor, right? For someone like my mum, it's been cooking and recipes. So at different points in her life, when she's had significant events happen, she's found herself, without even consciously doing it, just starting to feel called, pulled, compelled to pick up historical recipe books and start looking through those again. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have something there that you always go back to. And I think that that is a seed for your soul. It's a seed for your potential. It's a seed for some way that you can shine your light in the world. It's something that's very unique to you. And I want to help you unlock it. I want to help you understand what alignment looks like for you, because it might look different to what it is for me. I want you to understand how you might be able to, if you wanted to, how you might be able to link your anchor with your private practice and what that might unlock for you, and what that might unlock for your clients, what that might unlock for your money flow, what that might unlock for your joy and happiness. Do you know what I mean? All of that kind of stuff. So I hope that that all makes sense. And one of the ways that I do help you with this is through a coaching program. And I'm super, super excited at the moment because the next coaching program starts in a few weeks on the 1st of July, and people are booking in left, right and centre for calls to see if they qualify for the program. And I don't want you to miss out. So I'm going to put a link to the program in the show notes for you so that you too can go and check it out. And we can have a call, you and I can talk you through some of this stuff and how it might apply to your business. And there's no strings attached or anything like that. This is purely just a conversation that I want to have with you. See what your wins have been so far. See what the challenges are, and talk with you about what alignment could look like for you in your private practice in terms of how you might be able to get to a place where you've been longing to get for a little while now, but perhaps you haven't been shown yet how to get there, or you feel a little bit confused by it all, or a little bit overwhelmed, or just doubtful, or you're not really knowing what it might look like. So let's connect and have that conversation so that you can create that soul-driven private practice. And yes, you can have strategies as well, those of you who are wanting strategies. But the first strategy is we need to understand where you're at. That's the first step. All right. Anyway, guys, I will let you go. Thank you so much for celebrating this podcast with me. Please go through and have a listen to some of the previous episodes. And if they land for you, if they resonate, please do leave a review on iTunes, because when you do that, you'll be helping me achieve my goal of having more of an impact. Okay, so thank you so much for listening. I'm really looking forward to meeting more of you. And have a beautiful day, everybody. Happy Monday. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Private Practice with Soul podcast today. If you're looking for clarity, if you need help with branding, your processes, and bringing everything into alignment with your soul's purpose for your private practice, head to the show notes and click the link for more information about the Private Practice Monthly Mentorship Group. You are going to love it. I can't wait to see you in there. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.